The neon lights of New York City flickered like 1,000 restless stars against the night sky. From the top floor of a glass tower that pierced the clouds, Gideon Caldwell stood before the vast expanse of his empire, the city that never slept, a city that watched him rise from nothing to everything. He leaned back in his chair, a glass of whiskey untouched on the table beside him. The deal he had just closed was monumental, over $1 billion. Another triumph to add to his record-breaking portfolio. He should have felt invincible, unstoppable. But instead, a hollow ache sat quietly in his chest, one that no amount of wealth, power, or success could silence. His assistant, Bryn, entered the room with her usual crisp efficiency, holding a folder of documents and a sleek tablet. "Mr. Caldwell, your jet is ready. The flight to Tennessee is scheduled in 40 minutes. Shall I alert the pilot?" Gideon didn't answer immediately. His gaze lingered on the shimmering city lights reflected in the window, a mirror of everything he had built and everything he had lost. Finally, he said quietly, "Cancel the flight." Bryn blinked, surprised. "Cancel, sir? The meeting in Tennessee." "I'll handle it later," he interrupted, his tone calm but firm. "I need to stay here a little longer." Bryn hesitated, clearly unsettled by this sudden deviation from his meticulously planned schedule, but she nodded and left. Gideon's eyes hardened with decision. "Have Elton bring the car around," he said into the intercom. Moments later, he was seated in the back of his black luxury sedan, the city lights reflecting off the tinted windows as they drove away from the heart of Manhattan. But the further they went, the less his mind stayed in the present. Instead, it drifted back to a place he had buried deep within him. Nashville, Tennessee, the town where he had grown up, the place he had sworn never to return to until he had everything: money, success, power, until he had proven everyone wrong. As the car rolled to the quiet streets of his hometown, memories began to surface. The cracked sidewalks where he had sold newspapers, the public library where he used to sneak in and read business magazines he couldn't afford, the park bench where he had once sat dreaming of a life far beyond his reach. And then he saw it, Maggie's Diner. Time had barely touched it. The same faded red booths, the same flickering neon sign that buzzed weakly against the night. A small smile ghosted across Gideon's face, a mixture of nostalgia and regret. "Elton, stop here," he said softly. The driver parked, and Gideon stepped out. As the door of the diner jingled open, a wave of familiarity washed over him. The smell of coffee, fried food, and old wood. He chose a seat at the far corner booth, the one he had once occupied nearly every night, dreaming of the life he had now achieved. But dreams, he realized, often came at cost. He was lost in thought when a gentle voice broke the silence. "What can I get you, sir?" Gideon looked up and froze. The waitress standing before him had her dark brown hair tied into a messy bun, her uniform simple, her hands marked by long hours of work. Yet behind those tired green eyes was something achingly familiar. "Tessa?" he breathed before he could stop himself. The woman blinked in surprise. "Do I know you?" Gideon leaned forward slightly, his heart pounding. "Westwood High, class of 2012. Recognition dawned slowly in her eyes, followed by disbelief. "Gideon Caldwell." He smiled faintly, not the practiced, confident smile of the billionaire he had become, but the genuine one of the boy he once was. The one and only. Tessa stared at him for a long moment. "You're the Gideon Caldwell?" The billionaire. He nodded, though pride didn't come with the gesture. Instead, there was a quiet sadness in his expression. "I didn't expect to see you here." "Yeah," she said softly, forcing a hollow smile. "Some of us never left." They talked. Cautiously at first, then more openly as the hours passed. Old memories resurfaced between refills of coffee and hesitant laughter. But beneath Tessa's calm demeanor, Gideon sensed something broken, something unspoken. When the diner grew quiet and the night deepened, he finally asked, "What happened, Tessa? You were supposed to change the world." Her eyes clouded. After a long pause, she said quietly, "My father died when I was in my second year at Harvard. After that, everything fell apart. My mother got sick. I dropped out to take care of her and my little brother. I've been working ever since, wherever I could. Her voice cracked as she added, so here I am, still in Nashville, still waiting tables. Gideon felt his throat tighten. The girl who once dreamed so fearlessly, who had matched his ambition step for step, was now fighting just to survive. You're still standing, he said softly. Tessa let out a small, humorless laugh. Some dreams just aren't meant to come true. He left the diner that night, haunted by her words. In his sleek penthouse, surrounded by luxury, all he could see was Tessa's tired smile. The way she had once looked at the stars and talked about building something meaningful. She deserved better. And maybe for once, he could use his power to give her that. 2 days later, Tessa found a sleek black envelope tucked beneath her car's windshield wiper. Her name was written in elegant gold ink across the front. Inside was a note. Meet me at 9 a.m., Caldwell Enterprises. Her heart raced as she read it again. Gideon Caldwell. She hadn't expected to ever see him again, and certainly not in his world, the world of skyscrapers and billion-dollar deals. When she stepped into his Manhattan office, the contrast was staggering. Polished marble floors, floor-to-ceiling windows. The city stretched endlessly below them. Gideon stood behind a massive glass desk, his expression unreadable until he saw her. Then, something softened in his eyes. "Tessa," he greeted warmly, gesturing for her to sit. "Thank you for coming." She clutched her worn purse, feeling suddenly out of place in her faded blouse and scuffed shoes. "What is this about?" He hesitated, then slid a folder across the desk. "I want to offer you a position here." Tessa blinked. "A job?" "Not just a job," he said. "A managerial position. 6 figures. Full benefits. And—" he hesitated, his voice softening. "I'll take care of your mother's medical bills. Your brother's tuition. Everything." She stared at him, stunned. "Why would you do that?" Gideon met her eyes. "Because you were always meant for more than that diner. You just need a chance to prove it." Tears welled up in Tessa's eyes. It felt like the world had opened up again, the world she had given up on. For the first time in years, she felt hope, but hope, like all things, came with a test. For the next few weeks, Tessa threw herself into her new job at Caldwell Enterprises. The adjustment was difficult. She had gone from pouring coffee to managing high-stakes projects for one of the most powerful companies in the country. Yet, every time she faltered, Gideon was there, calm, patient, encouraging. Under his guidance, she began to rediscover the woman she once was. The dreamer, the fighter, the believer. Each morning, she walked into the sleek glass tower not as a waitress from Maggie's diner, but as a professional, a leader. And though she never said out loud, she was grateful to Gideon for believing in her when no one else had. But not everyone was happy about her rise. Vance Warwick, Gideon's ruthless rival, had been watching closely. Vance was everything Gideon wasn't. Cunning without conscience, successful without sincerity. When word reached him that Gideon had taken a small-town waitress under his wing, he saw an opportunity, not just to hurt Gideon's company, but to strike him personally. He had his assistant arrange a chance meeting. Tessa received an invitation one afternoon to attend a charity gala hosted by Warwick Industries. The card was embossed in silver, her name printed in elegant script. At first, she hesitated, but the note said Gideon's company had been invited as well. She assumed it was work-related. The night of the gala, the ballroom shimmered with opulence, crystal chandeliers, champagne towers, and the low hum of polite conversation. Tessa wore a simple black dress that Gideon's assistant had helped her pick out. She felt nervous but proud. That was until Vance Warwick approached her. He was charming in a way that felt rehearsed, his smile sharp and deliberate. "Tessa Hargrove," he greeted smoothly, his voice low and confident. "I've heard quite a bit about you." The woman who caught Gideon Caldwell's attention. Tessa tensed. "I just work for him." "Of course," Vance said with a sly grin. "But you're more than that. You're smart, capable." Wasted, frankly, in his shadow. Before she could respond, he leaned in slightly, lowering his voice. "I could offer you something better. A position at Warwick Global. Twice the pay, your own office, full creative control, and a chance to lead projects, not just follow them. Tessa blinked in disbelief. Why me? Because Gideon sees something in you, he said, eyes glinting. And I want to see it, too. She felt uneasy. It sounded too good, too strategic. What's the catch? Vance smiled faintly. No catch, just loyalty. If you bring me information, insights, reports, anything that gives me an edge, we both win. You get everything you've ever wanted. And Gideon loses nothing he can't afford. Her stomach twisted. It wasn't an offer, it was temptation. That night, she returned to her apartment and sat by the window, the city lights stretching endlessly before her. The offer haunted her. Wealth, recognition, security, everything she had struggled for. Yet the price, betraying Gideon, felt unbearable. For days, she couldn't focus. Her hands trembled during meetings. Gideon noticed. One morning, he called her into his office. You seem distracted lately, he said, studying her carefully. Is something wrong? She shook her head quickly. No, I'm just tired. It's been a lot to adjust to. But he didn't believe her. His intuition, sharp from years of reading boardrooms and betrayals, told him something else was at play. Later that week, he found out. A report reached his desk detailing Vance Ward's recruitment efforts. When he read Tessa's name, his heart sank. He didn't feel anger, just disappointment and concern. When Tessa walked into his office the next morning, she froze at the sight of the file open on his desk. I know, he said quietly. Her breath caught. Gideon, I know, he repeated, softer this time. I know he approached you, and I know what he offered. She lowered her head, ashamed. I didn't tell you because I didn't know what to do. It's a lot of money, Gideon. My mom's still sick, and my brother... He rose from his chair and walked around the desk until he stood beside her. I understand, he said. You don't owe me loyalty. You owe yourself the right to choose. His words stunned her. No accusation, no anger, only trust. Gideon continued, his tone calm but firm. Vance will give you everything he promises, for a price. Once he has what he wants, he'll discard you. You'll be just another tool he used to hurt someone else. That's not the future I see for you, Tessa. She blinked back tears, his words cutting through the noise of her doubts. I can't tell you what to do, Gideon said, stepping back. But the person I believe in, the one who fought her way through loss, who never gave up, she's stronger than that. You don't need to sell your soul to find your worth. The silence between them stretched long and heavy. Then Tessa took a deep breath. I know what I want, she said quietly, and it's not his offer. Gideon's expression softened. You're sure? She nodded. I've spent too long letting life decide for me. This time, I'm choosing for myself. Relief flickered in his eyes, followed by something warmer. Then you've already made the right choice. Tessa smiled through her tears. Thank you for believing in me. You did the hard part yourself, Gideon said gently. You just needed a reminder of who you are. From that day on, something changed between them. Their partnership grew stronger, not out of obligation, but out of mutual respect and trust. Together, they faced the growing threats from Vance's schemes and turned every challenge into another victory. Months later, Caldwell Enterprises announced a new branch, a charitable foundation designed to help young entrepreneurs from small towns get the education and funding they needed. Tessa was named as director. At the launch event, as reporters filled the room and cameras flashed, Gideon stood beside her, watching her speak with passion and confidence. The woman who once served coffee at Maggie's Diner now inspired hundreds to dream bigger. When the crowd dispersed, Tessa turned to him, smiling softly. You know, I used to think success was about escaping where I came from, she said. But maybe it's about returning and doing something that matters. Gideon nodded, pride shining in his eyes. Maybe we both had to come back to remember who we are. Their hands brushed, a fleeting touch, but one charged with everything unsaid. The city lights glowed behind them, a reflection of two lives intertwined not by fate, but by choice. Tessa had found her way again, not through wealth or ambition or promises of power, but through faith, integrity, and the quiet strength of second chances. And as she stood beside Gideon, ready to face whatever the future held, she finally understood the truth that had eluded her for years. She didn't need saving. She just needed someone to believe. And now she believed in herself. The skyline shimmered, endless and alive, as the night unfolded before them. Not as an ending, but a new beginning.